All right, folks, turn on your mics if you would, please. Are we all set?
Dice.
Good. I called to order the Torch Lake Township regular board meeting of September 20th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, board, we will review the housekeeping items as always. Board, when speaking, please move close to your microphone to ensure you are heard clearly for the YouTube streaming, and I request that citizens who speak to adjust the height and stand close to the microphone. There will be 2 opportunities for citizen comments. I will be requesting individuals stay within the 4 minutes in both citizen comment sections and would appreciate everyone keeping their points concise. I would request that comments are made respectfully to the board. We are here to discuss the township's business. Citizens' comments should pertain to specific issues, concerns, or policies they would like to bring to the board's attention. The documents on the website are aligned to the items on the agenda. These are draft documents to provide background information only. Just to be clear, motions were drafted to help the board more quickly get to the final wording and vote on the respective motions. The final motion, therefore, may look different to reflect the actual action taken by the board. Moving on, board, we have 3 sets of minutes to approve. Are there any changes to the minutes to the regular board meeting of August 16th, 2022? Any comments?
I do, but I want, anybody else have some first before I
Alan,
start?
Jason? Kathy? I have none. I leave-
Okay, here we go.
Which one are we doing? 16?
Yes.
All right. I am number 5. The last comment made, that last sentence, I said the board will vote favorably on their request. The board was not making any vote. The Hosmers were also present to say hello and hopes the board will vote favorably on their request. There was no vote, and there was only a public comment letter that was presented. It was not on the agenda, only for action, not for action, but only for commentary, discussion.
Discussion on it.
So Kathy's comments, her comments, the board will favor, vote. We don't need that in there. There was no votes.
So take out the word vote and look, maybe, put in the word look favorably on the request.
I would just say hello.
Say what?
Hello and reading of their comment, their letter. It's up to the board how they want to say, but their board will vote favorably, and there was no vote. It wasn't even up for a vote.
But I believe that's what they said, whether we were voting or not, but I would let it be corrected.
I mean, you read their letter.
I don't have the letter in front of me. Did it say in the letter that they hoped we would vote favorably on their request? I don't care if we change the word vote.
Because it appears to me that should be a vote, and there is no vote.
Well, they probably wouldn't have known that.
Right.
Looking at the agenda and stuff. I mean, they came to present their opinion. And if they hoped that the board would vote and we didn't vote, it's up, if you want to take the word vote out, insert something because they did request that the board would view it favorably.
How about look favorably?
Review, because it was part of a discussion. There was no vote. I'm having trouble with
We
the
got
vote.
that, we got that.
All right, I would agree with you to take out the word vote, but I would put in the word look. And because in essence, that's what they were asking us to do, is to view what the request was favorably. And I don't mind the word look.
Okay,
Look,
and I have more here.
Okay. Where are you?
I am looking at my highlights and whether I want to bring this one up or not. I think it was just a comment that I was thinking in my head. But let's go down to D. And let's move on to number 4. But I'm going to reference back to number 3. I'm referencing number 3 because it says Planning Commission appointment, and then it starts with due to the resignation of Bob Hawkins. I'm going to point that out, due to the resignation of Bob Hawkins. So when I go to 4, ZBA alternate replacement, it just starts in with a motion. It doesn't say fulfill the term of Marcia Peterson. It doesn't say why or what or how it became. So I would suggest that would also say due to the resignation of Marcia Peterson. If you follow me on that one.
well, it says it at the end of the sentence, Sharon. The motion
I
by-
know, but it says,
To nominate Rita Service to fulfill the term of Marcia Peterson.
and it just says, yeah, to fulfill, but why are we fulfilling it? You use the word resignation in Bob, and hers also was a resignation. They both had letters of resignation.
Fulfill
one
the
is
ter-
describing
fulfill
it and
the
one
term-
isn't.
Fulfill the term of Marcia Peterson due to her resignation.
Or just start at the beginning, due to the resignation of Marcia Peterson, like number 3.
Either or. Got it?
And then I would like to say in there, okay, that's pretty much that area there, due to the resignation. And then number 5, I had to read it like over and over and over. I would like it to say, second line there, with resolution 2022-12, comma, and a comma, and say, through fact findings, resolution 2022-13 is reinstated. It needs to kind of know why. So I would like to insert the words through fact findings in there.
I would agree.
It doesn't really say why you're changing this and doing these resolutions. It needs to have some kind of, if you're looking at this 10 years down the road, you want to know why.
That's fine. Next one.
And then number E, 1, Mr. Martell's name is spelt wrong.
Yep.
There's 3 L's.
Those are just some simple comments that I have on these minutes.
All right. Hearing no other comments, I will make a motion to approve the August 16th, 2022 regular board meeting minutes with changes. Is there a second?
I can second that.
Thank you. It is moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of August 16th, 2022 with changes. Any further discussion regarding the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Are there any changes to the minutes to the special board meeting of August 18th, 2022, which reviewed the offer to purchase an emergency fire vehicle? Comments, board? I have none.
I have none. I highlighted one, but it's there, so I'm okay with it.
Okay, Jason? Kathy? All right, then I will make the motion to approve the August 18th, 2022 special board meeting minutes as presented. Is there a second, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you. It is moved and seconded to approve the special board meeting of August 18th, 2022 as presented. Any further discussion regarding the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Third meeting, are there any changes to the minutes to the special board meeting of August 31st, 2022? This was a review, the report regarding the maintenance report that came back on the emergency fire vehicle. Are there any comments or changes to that?
Did you ever find your minutes, notes on that? Because I think I made that motion and it's got Cook in here.
Which motion, ma'am?
The only motion in here.
Well, help me find that.
Number 4.
Okay.
But that's how I remember it, but
Yeah, I kind of think.
I think
that-
you did.
that
I
was-
did.
And I think, who seconded it?
I think I did.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
You woke up, no, I mean you.
You put me to sleep.
I know. So we had a second by Jason. And it was Sharon that proposed it. Any other comments? All right, hearing no further comments, it is moved and seconded to approve the special board meeting of August 31st, 2022 with changes.
You made that?
Let's see, that's right, I should probably go up above. Who will make the motion to approve it with changes? I thought Sharon said she did.
I'll make the motion to approve it with changes.
Yeah,
I'll second.
and Jason will second it. So it is moved and seconded to approve the second board meeting of August 31st, 2022 with changes. If there's no discussion on the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we'll move on.
Thank you, board.
All right, the next item is the correspondence and announcements. Kathy?
I received an email that I told the writer that I would read tonight at the meeting. We had discussion about it because the item that this person is commenting on is not on the agenda tonight. But since I said that I would read it. This item will be on the agenda perhaps next month, but it is not right now. So this is to the Torch Lake Township clerk, and it says, I am writing in regard to the positions available for the Torch Lake Township Zoning Board of Appeals and the proposed appointment of Miss Rita Service to same by her husband, Township Supervisor Bob Cook. If ever there was a conflict of interest, then surely this meets the criteria. As the ZBA is the first legal recourse for any zoning questions or variance requests, anyone appointed to a position on the ZBA should be in no way connected to or in any way possibly influenced by another township employee, much less a spouse. Even the public's perception of the possible influence affecting ZBA decisions would be catastrophic to the light in which our township's government body is reviewed. Respectfully concerned, Connie L. Taylor. And the reason that I decided to read this email tonight rather than waiting till this was on the agenda is that we are so often accused of being non-transparent in the community. So this was a legitimate email received from a resident with a legitimate concern, and therefore it is being read at the board meeting. And that's
Kathy, would you say
really
the
all
name
that
again?
is. Connie Taylor.
Okay.
That's the only announcement or correspondence, I'm sorry, that I have. No announcements that I can think of.
All right, very good. Thank you. Next item is approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, I only have one correction on it, and that was that by the Planning Commission, Jason Merchant, I had the words, there was no meeting in August, and that was unnecessary, but that should not be a problem. We should be able to accept the agenda as presented. So I will make the motion that the agenda be accepted as presented.
Whoops.
We have a meeting September 13th.
I know that. I said, because you're the one that pointed it out, that on the agenda that I had made mention that there wasn't an August meeting, we're beyond that point.
Oh, okay, all right.
So I'm just identifying the
Okay.
issue associated. Well, I'm reiterating what you told me.
Okay.
All right, so I make the motion that the agenda be accepted as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Jason. It is moved and seconded that the agenda accepted as presented. Any further discussion regarding the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we will move to citizen comment. Since we don't have our cards, we will do
Bless
the
you.
obligatory.
We do have some up there, but
We do? We'll have Jairus fill it out, but Jairus will let you as a courtesy to be the first.
Is it on? There it is. The road commission met today, and they're hoping to finish up their projects for Antrim County in the next 2 weeks. And they're also hoping to have the salt shed done in Central Lake by the 15th of October, because we need to start filling it for salt by that time. It looks like we're gonna be able to do that. We're having a little problem disconnecting the power from the garage that's there now and moving it to the new garage, because Consumers Energy has to do that, and they told us that they can't get to us until November. So we have a temporary power supply going there right now, and we may have to keep that longer than.
Yep.
I think it did too.
thank you, Mike.
We may have to keep that temporary power going longer than we anticipated. The Antrim County Sheriff informed our county administrator that he will no longer be overseeing animal control. So he told the commissioners that we are going to have to find someone to oversee that. It has been overseen by the sheriff for approximately 30 years in Antrim County, so it's going to be kind of a big change. And it seems like it's been a fairly good fit in the past, so I'm not super excited about it.
What caused that?
I asked that and I didn't get much explanation.
Does the sheriff have a choice?
Apparently, he has a choice. If he doesn't want to, the MCL state law does not require him to do animal control. Most sheriffs in northern Michigan do animal control because if there's a seizure, there's a deputy involved, and the deputy answers to the sheriff. So most of the time, they do.
Is it cost, do you think?
I don't think it's cost because it's just moving numbers around. We're still going to have to do animal control. We have to take care of the animals that get seized from time to time. We have to take in strays. We can't just leave them starved, so they have to be fed one way or another. So I don't.
It's been a big project and a big problem for many, many, many years.
In what way?
Sheriff is down there all the time. It takes a lot of his time to maintain that down there too. They've had health issues. They've had a lot of issues. That's just me working at the county, having to do spay neuter programs and dog licenses and so forth. But it's been ongoing.
Can you have somebody who would be authorized to provide tickets for?
Well, they do.
I do not know the answer to that question.
They have the deputies that, they have the office, they have them They're on their trucks. They go to issue licenses
Yeah,
and
but
so
those are
forth.
currently deputies, are they not?
No, they are, animal control can issue tickets.
But they're officers.
They're officers. Well,
That's what I mean, they're the police. I mean, okay, you got a problem.
It was brought up about Barnes Park. I don't want to get too far into it, but as many of you know, I'm the chairman of the Antrim Creek Natural Area, and they wanted us to put advertisements out this last year to try to get more visitors, and the commission said no. We have enough. We'd have not enough parking as it is during holidays out there. So why would we advertise for more people? Our part-time person that works out there said that during the summer last year, there was not a day where there was not visitors. Every day had visitors. And some people come early in the morning to enjoy a nice walk or a run on the beach. I think that's about all I got, unless you got questions.
Nope, thanks. Anyone else? All right. Moving on to consent agenda. Anyone wish to pull any of the reports?
I would like to forward number 5 ambulance and number 6 fire department, please. They're both here, so why not?
Right. I'll just make a really quick comment. Sharon fulfilled the request that her report reflects the federal government's ARPA grant so that you can see exactly how much money we have there, exclusive of the grant of 123,000+. So thank you, Sharon, for doing that. No other reports, then I will consider all the other reports are approved by consent, and we will pull the ambulance and fire. And Sharon, fire away.
Very simple. Under services, primary rig in for repairs, backup rig in service. I'm happy to say that our primary rig is back in service as of yesterday after a long time of trying to get service. So hallelujah, yippee. That's all I have to say on that one. And they just got it back in service and had a call right afterwards, correct? Anyway, fire department. I just have a quick question. Perhaps Ted or is Ted here? I don't know who does the reports. But anyway, the top part, it says fire runs for August. And down the bottom, it says fire department medical assists. I'm just curious, is there a reason why there would be a lift assist in the fire runs and not down in the fire medical assist? Perhaps in reference to 8/11/22, lift assist Birchview Drive. Is that something different up in fire runs versus fire medical assists? Oh, okay. Because everything down the fire and medical assist, it's all got lift assists or ambulance assists type of things. Yet there's one in the fire runs, lift assist.
I think the one on the fire run would be, we were actually phased out from the central dispatch for the fire department for that particular call.
Wouldn't you be on any of the other ones down the bottom too?
When the fire department calls, and then with the medical assist, I do believe are the ones that the on-duty personnel respond to during the day. So that's listed as non-fire medical assist.
That's what I kind of thought it was, but I just wanted to know if that's the reason why.
Yes.
Okay, that explains it, because that, in my head, that's what it was, a fire call or a ambulance call with your secondary type of thing. That's all I need to know. With that, my questions were answered. Thank you.
All right, then I'll make the motion for the board to accept the ambulance and fire department report. Is there a second?
I second it.
All right, the motion has been moved and seconded to accept the ambulance and fire department reports. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. All right, moving on to our special reports. Jason, Planning Commission?
Yes, sir. Really, the only thing that we discussed last Tuesday was the noise ordinance that was passed on to us by by the board, right?
Right.
And we talked quite a bit about it, probably over an hour, and we came to the conclusion that we weren't really ready to make a decision on it yet, so we're going to take another month to talk more about that.
Okay, great. Thank you. I was there and you guys did spend a lot of time and it was a good discussion. So I appreciate that. Kathy, FOIA reports.
Yep. I had told you a couple months ago about a big, long, huge FOIA that had taken forever. And the good news is that one is now completed. And in the clerk's report, you'll see that we sent the attorney company that handled that FOIA a refund because they overpaid us the deposit that we required. So we didn't charge them quite as much as we thought we were going to. And I have one open FOIA right now that is waiting for the report that's going to be composed by Sarah for the Planning Commission, coming from the steering committee that looked at the ordinances to the ordinance changes. And Sarah's compiling a summary of all of that to share with the Planning Commission. And there's been a FOIA request for that document.
Oh, is that Bob Spencer's?
Well, yeah,
Well, yeah, he just wanted, yeah, it was a FOIA, but
He-
it's just
no,
going to
he
get a
sub-
copy of.
he
the-
submitted a FOIA.
Yeah.
So, having said all of that, no FOIAs right now.
That will be,
See the smile?
Sarah should have that done by the
Yeah.
end of September.
I saw her the other day and asked how it was going.
Yep, all right. Financial review. As in the past, any questions regarding the financials can be directed either to the clerk's office or myself. For the current month of August, cash flow was favorable to the budget by $20,000. It was negative $111,000 versus a budget of $131,000. On a year-to-date basis, we are favorable by $211,000 to the budget. Booking of the road fund expenditures and additional operating capital costs are going to reduce that favorability going forwards. The specific line item details can be found on the website under our board meeting information in the files called Fund by Detail Line. Looking ahead, we paid $110,000 to the road commission in September, leaving a negative balance of roughly $55,000 in that fund when the rest of it is paid out. This will be covered in December when we begin collection of the taxes under the new millage.
Right.
Our cash position remains in good shape for the other key funds, as treasurer's report indicates balance in the general fund of $878,800 after removing the ARPA reserve. The fire fund, $426,800, and the ambulance fund, $499,000. A quick cash flow analysis based on budget expenditures for September through November timeframe, reflecting projected cash balances at 12/1/22 are as followed. General fund should be about $905,000. It has a positive cash flow budget of $27,000. The ambulance fund is going to have a negative cash flow of $132,000. Therefore, its cash balance will drop down to $329,000. The fire fund, negative cash flow of $69,000, plus an incremental estimate of $30,000 for fire truck maintenance and repairs and other equipment. The estimated fund balance on December 1st should be somewhere around $328,000.
For the fire,
I'm sorry?
for fire fund, you said?
Yes, for the fire
Okay.
fund. That concludes the finance report. Again, if you have questions, give me a call. And Julie, I will turn it over to you. Julie Brown, our superintendent of Elk Rapids Schools.
I just want to make a comment. Bob, you go through these very well, and we appreciate all the hard work that you do on these. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak to the board again today. I'm coming to the board, first of all, thank you for your service, whether you're voted for, appointed, hired, Torch Township doesn't run without you, so thank you for what you do. And I'm here representing the school district because as leaders of your township, you will certainly get questions on the 2 ballot proposals that will affect the school. The first page in the handout that I provided you is the 18 mills operating millage that will be going to the voters to consider in November. The last time we asked the voters to consider this millage was in 2013. A 20 mill operating millage was approved for 10 years. Although we can only levy 18 mills, we are asking the voters to consider 20 mills to protect us from the Headley rollback, which means if property values exceed inflation, to protect the property owners, the taxes get rolled back. If they get rolled back, it impacts our income. And if we do not collect a full 18 mills, we lose that money. There is no way to make it up. This year, we're asking the voters to consider 20 mills again, but only for 5 years. And the reason we're only doing 5 years is because of the volatility of the property taxes and just what we've seen in the last 3 years. We predict that the summer levy of 2023, we are actually going to roll back below the 18 mills and lose approximately $100,000, which is why we're only asking for 5 years, because we just don't know where it's going to go. I've been asked about this millage, that if it doesn't pass, what happens? If it doesn't pass, the district closes because it's about 90% of our revenue. And there is no way to recover that funding if it's not considered. So for us, 90% of our funding is about, I forget, $9.6 million. The state puts in about another 1.4 million. So it's really important for us that the voters consider this, ask you guys questions, call us and ask us questions if there's any misunderstanding or confusion. The important thing about this millage is it's for non-homestead properties only. So as a resident homeowner, your taxes will not be impacted, and there is not an increase to the non-homestead. We can only levy the 18 mills. Non-homestead properties include rentals, second homes, and vacant lands. It does not include your primary residence and agricultural properties. So that's the first one we're asking voters to consider. The first page of the document I gave you is the facts with the November 8 voting date. The back side is a frequently asked questions document and also the ballot language that you will see. The second millage that you'll see on the ballot November 8 is a regional special education millage. So Northwest Education, formerly Services, formerly TBA ISD, they provide Elk Rapids schools students with disabilities services that are required by federal law. And if you notice on the back side of that document, Elk Rapids students alone receive about $630,000 worth of services that are not paid through our general fund. What the intermediate school district is asking for is voters to consider a half-mill restoration millage to restore the 2 mills that were approved in 2001. So the 0.5 mill restoration will keep us at the current services that we have right now. Without that, we'll roll back below the 2 mills, and that will affect the funding for Elk Rapids students. What that means for Elk Rapids students is we'll still provide the services. We have to by federal law, but it's also the right thing to do. And then it'll also affect our general fund, which will take away from other programming. Again, that one's a restoration. There are no increases. Ours is asking for you, Elk Rapids Schools is asking for you to reconsider the 2013 20 mil and restore it and give us 5 more years on that. So those are the 2 proposals you'll see in November. All right, you have questions? Yes.
The 2 mills are not related to both issues, are they?
The 2 mills is the intermediate school district ballot. You'll see that ballot language in one spot, and then you'll see Elk Rapids Schools in another spot.
What I'm thinking is the 18 to 20. That 2
Oh, no,
mills,
those are separate.
That's your rollback money?
So the 20 mills, that's our rollback.
Okay.
Yep, 2 mills are rollback.
This is just come to me recently. Do you have help for dyslexic kids?
We do, and it depends on where you're looking at. We have intervention services that come before special education services, and those, it's not just dyslexia, it's all kinds of services. You might have someone that is on the spectrum, maybe autism, that needs some kind of reading services, and that would be provided by general funds. If they're special education and they're diagnosed with that dyslexia, that will come out of the special needs funds. So we do service both sides. It just depends what pot of money it comes from.
Do you have staff trained for that?
We do not have staff trained for that. The intermediate school district does, which is why that second millage proposal is so important to us.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could elaborate on that, so one of the things that's tough about the rural area up here in our smaller school districts, we have to provide things like dyslexia support, autism support, social work support, psychology,
Psychological.
it's not, it's a service that you provide testing. I can't think of the name of it right now. But for a district the size of Mount Rapids to hire all those people, we just can't, we could not afford it all. So partnering with the intermediate school district, they train, they hire, and then we get like maybe 2/10 of that staff a couple days a week to support our students. So I just wanted to elaborate because that was a really important point that you brought up. We really count on those special education mills to support all kids.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I have questions.
Yes.
Seems how I just mailed you almost $1 million.
I was gonna say, you probably can answer most of those for me.
I just did that. But anyway, this is a new election. I mean, this is a separate election. I mean, a special millage on this one, the second one here?
Yes,
Or
it
is this a
is.
TBA one?
That's the intermediate school district millage. It's a special millage for them. It's a restoration millage.
Okay, so this is not going to be on Elk Rapids school millage.
No, it'll be under Northwest Education Services. Those will be two separate.
Okay. And this is increasing by what?
It's a restoration of half a mill. So it'll take the mills back up to 2, but it'll not go over 2 mills. So it's just protecting them from the rollback also.
So that's what's on the current levy right now, then it's going to restore that one.
It's going to restore it, yes.
Yes, my questions were, you kind of answered it, but going to 20 mil from the 18, are you prepared if it's, I mean, are people getting informed, or how do, when I get questions about the millages, which I do a lot,
Right, that's why I'm here.
who am I going to send them to you?
Yep, there's a
to-
phone number, and the office has been directed, I want to talk to people. Yes.
Because I get the feedback when the tax
Yes.
bills come out.
Yes,
Trust me, I do.
Yes.
So, and I look at those millages and dates
Mhm.
very closely. So this is on your November. Why wasn't it on the August or?
so it wasn't on the August because honestly, I thought we had another 2 years. But because our levy is going to go below the 18 mills in the summer of 2023, we have to get on this now. And
That's-
so by the time I realized that, I think in July, and we had our board meeting, and then we had to get it approved by the board, the resolution
Because
passed.
if it was on the August and it didn't, and it failed or something happened, you always could ride back to November, but.
Right. So
Okay.
we plan to go in May if it doesn't go. And so just so I want to be really clear too, we're asking the voters to consider 20 mills. We cannot levy above 18. That's law. We could ask for 200 mills. We can only levy 18. That will not change unless the voters decide to change that. The 20 mills only comes into effect if we roll back. So if we roll back taxes and our millage rate or our mills drops to 21, we still collect 18. If our rate drops to 18.5, we collect 18. It doesn't matter honestly what we ask for, we can only collect 18. That'll never change. So the voters will not see a change to their tax bill. It won't affect
So you're
them.
asking for 20 so that the rollback will still keep it at the 18. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Because if we don't collect 18, anything below 18, we lose as far as revenue. We just don't get it.
So that gives you the same amount of cash?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, because we have the Headley rollback on our
Yes.
township government and all that sort of thing too.
Yes.
So, okay, that's very interesting.
Mhm. And that's why I'm here and opening up the discussion, and for the, people that are here, my number's on there. I will come and talk. I will answer questions, and if I don't have answers, because I'm learning a lot of this, I will certainly get the answers. It's important, it's non-homestead, and nothing but above 18 mills can ever be levied unless the voters change that.
So your L4029s is going to change that number after the elections then? Or
It
what-
would change for the 2023 levy,
The 2023 levy?
yes.
Right, because we're already set in 2022, so, yeah, that's why May would be the secondary if something happens there.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And we really pushed it for November because it saves us $40,000 and having to run an election on our own. So one of the things we didn't love was how fast we were putting this out there because we didn't want it to look sneaky. It's saving the voters and us $40,000, and that was important to us.
Right. So haven't seen the actual election ballot language. Do we have to wait till the ballots come out before we can see that then, or do you
So
have
I
it on
have
your
I
website?
have a copy of what you'll see on the ballot on the back part of the Elk Rapids one. I had that ballot language. We had to get that approved. I do not have Northwest Ed's ballot language.
Okay, all right, I see it here. But the ISD is a separate one, and you don't have that one.
The ISD is separate, and I do not have it, and it's a regional, so it'll be on every
Right,
ballot.
all right. I'll read this carefully.
Sharon, I want to take you to every meeting because you pick up all the questions that I forget to talk about. Okay, maybe not every meeting. Couple of them.
Millages and taxes and numbers are my baby,
Yes.
so.
Yes, and I appreciate your work on that.
Can I rewind something you just
Sure.
said? It will be on every ballot, you said, but only those that use the ISD, right? Because we have Central Lake schools that don't use the ISD.
Yes.
So,
What?
That's right, I'm in the wrong district. You use Traverse City,
mhm.
but this is the ISD that we're talking about, not
The
the,
former TBA,
Yeah.
not the SHRM.
Yeah.
Don't,
okay.
don't intertwine those two
Okay.
together.
Right, they got their own problems. Sorry. Just gotta
Little
lighten the
side
mood.
comment
Gotta
there,
lighten the
that's
mood.
all right.
No. It is very confusing. So I will be at all the township meetings. I'll be at some of the
Don't put SHRM
groups,
there at all.
Rotary and those kinds of things. And I'll also be meeting with our PTOs and really trying to get the message out. So hopefully we'll help you guys with questions, but send them to me. That's what I do.
Well, I can remember the meetings when they first started, when it was one tax bill gone to the summer back in 2002.
Jason.
Don't worry, it's nothing about mills or levies, because that's
Thank
over
you.
my head. How is the project going at the school?
I'm so happy you asked that. It is so exciting.
It looks like Ukraine over there right now.
It's a little messy. It is. But people have been so kind about parking. So softball, you're going to see all the lay down stuff. Like we all are just suffering. Our central office is in a classroom and we have 4 office space in that one classroom because we weren't going to pay for a trailer for us to sit in until our new office was done. So everyone's just been so gracious about it. Sunrise Academy Alternative will be done in probably a month. Our central office space will be done maybe in 2 months. We're waiting for some things. The main office is going to be done for start of school next year, and we're going to start seeing masonry going up on the gym pretty quick here. So it's exciting. And in the central or middle school, they're starting to tear down. So it's a lot, but again, I thank the voters for trusting us with that and doing a great job for our communities. So thanks for asking, Jason. I get a
What are
little
the new
excited.
numbers for this year's school?
We're up 11 students as of yesterday, so we're feeling really good. We brought back a lot of pandemic students, and we're seeing now we're starting to see numbers of people just we haven't seen before. So we're pretty excited about that.
You
And
don't-
that's again kudos to our township and people just working together, like bringing people here, getting them in our schools.
There's no more Zoom classes then?
No
Or
more what?
Zoom classes?
I was thinking Zumba, like dancing. No, we do not have any online classes anymore. Maybe showed my age a little bit, right? Anyway,
All set, board?
thank
Julie,
you so much for your
Thank you.
time. And again, your service, we
Yeah.
appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, board, next item is we have Tom Joseph here and he's going to talk about a dirty subject. And we'll take 2 minutes so that we can get set up.
A dirty subject, a dirty, dirty subject.
You don't have to stay.
You're going to use the screen, John?
Oh,
I'd like to see.
oh, okay.
You know our number, but we can direct it right to me, so I do want to.
My star is there. I want to read this very carefully. I highlight, I'm into this,
I know
so.
you are. I love your question about it. Another township, and no one asked me anything. I was like, oh, I know I'm this stuff.
Your phone number,
I did it.
phone number.
It's on the first page.
First page. Oh, there we go.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's you, Julie, or?
Yes, ma'am. And I don't know, I'll find out. Helps me learn a little bit.
Now Century has a new superintendent, or, well, interim.
Oh,
because-
really?
Yeah,
I didn't hear that.
she left,
Is she okay?
retired. Yeah,
She retired.
she retired.
I didn't-
So Central Lake's in an interim right now, until they get somebody hired there, so.
I tell you, I thought I was ready for this. Oh, I just wasn't. Like the stuff you're talking about, 49, like I did not know.
Oh.
Like,
Oh, I could rattle numbers off a mile long and I would bore you to death.
people don't even understand the size of the school and townships. work together.
Yeah. See, I've got my assessors.
So when Bob first asked me to come and talk a little bit about septic systems, I try to look for something that you could refer to after I'm done talking. And if the township takes on this task, they're going to have a lot of work to do. So it's good to have some guidance. And so what I did was I found that a document, it's called the Septic Question Project Report, that was done for Antrim County in 2016. And we have a lot of activities with other organizations that are working on the issues of septic systems, especially around the lakes. But when I went back and looked at that report, it's still very current, very, very accurate, very current. So I find that it's a good resource for all of you. And a lot of what I put into this presentation has come out of that report. You want to flip to the next screen, please? That's good. What's your screensaver?
Yeah, that's fewer running water. So you may need to change it.
Well, you can go back to the other way if you want. But it should have changed how it communicates with you. Oh, there you go. Okay. You don't have to write that down. We can make copies if you want to have the log on for going onto the internet, but that's what it looks like. It's called the Septic Question, the Antrim County Report. And that was just a print date, 9/20/22. It was actually done up in 2016. Okay, let's see if we can change it now. All right, very good. So septic systems, surprisingly, especially people that come from downstate up here, they're not familiar with the basic fundamentals of a septic system. I remember when the person bought the house next to me about 10 years ago, after the closing, the seller said to him, "You didn't never ask me about the well or septic tank." And they said, "Well, why would we need to know about that? You don't have those here, do you?" Well, that's how much they knew. So I actually gave them a copy of that little picture there. And it shows where the comes out of the house, goes into the tank, goes into the header and into the drain field. Surprisingly, it's important that people know those things. A lot of people don't even know where their tanks are. So it's hard for the service guy to come out and service your tank. But these are the things that are important to start with when you go start asking the questions. All right? Before you can start to work on something, you have to understand the problem. So the statement of the problem is what's really helpful here. And I want to read this verbatim. Most on-site septic systems in the state are never inspected again once they're installed. Michigan is the only state of the nation without uniform standards on how on-site septic systems are designed, built, installed, and maintained. Which is surprising because Michigan's major resource is water, and the greatest threat of faulty septic systems are our water resources. Public health officials in Michigan believe reported septic system failures represent only a fraction of the total number of failures statewide, and many go undetected or remain unreported for years. I myself moved up here in 1996. Before that, I lived in Oakland County, downstate Michigan, and I watched that transition from septic systems to sewers, and it unfortunately was after all the lakes were destroyed that they decided to go to sewers. It's a big thing. It's a big thing in Michigan, but right now we've got 72 counties that really have a threat to public health and the water systems because there's just not enough attention to it. Now, we're looking at it from this township looking up. There's a lot of activities where they're looking at it at the state level, trying to get the state legislation effort to get things uniformly documented. But there's a lot of pushback. There's pushback because there's a lot of money involved, there's a lot of risk involved. And we've let the problem go for a long time. Let's see what we can do here at Torch Lake Township. Now that we know the statement of the problem, peeling the onion back a little bit, there's no requirements for regular inspections of existing systems. There's no inspections of groundwaters, rivers, streams, lakes, or drinking waters that are all at risk. The only thing that we really have close to that is when there's sampling at beach locations for E. coli. And then if the E. coli is high, that's the first thing you go look for to see if it's contamination in sewage systems. Okay? Well, it's kind of late for that, but at least we have one little check and balance that does happen on a regular basis. So fundamentally, if systems are never inspected again once they're installed, and homeowners are not educated, like we know there many of them are not, all right, it's possible that we not maintain properly, resulting in problems for waterways and sometimes neighbors. I know people that had all of a sudden got sick, found out that their well was contaminated. It was because of someone in the neighborhood that wasn't maintaining their systems. It's too late then. You got to have some kind of a monitoring system and a maintenance system to avoid those problems. This is a big one here in our area. Aging systems that have not been replaced or probably uninspected, unmaintained, are dangerous of failing. Even newer systems that are not inspected and need repairs could be the difference between an affordable fix and pollution. So let's go to the next one. Where does the health department fit? The health department basically is required to inspect septic systems according to the sanitary code, which is a long thing. It's kind of to be broken down in this way. The size of the tank is based on the number of bedrooms in the house. The type of the distribution or drain field is based on the type of soil, the amount of area that's involved, and the distance to waterways. Those are the top level things. There's pages and pages and pages to the code, but that's where you start. During the time of transfer of property in Milton Township, and Milton Township's the only one within Antrim County that has time of transfer. There's some other examples that I point out a little later that have some, like Clearwater adopted one from Kalkaska, but right now that's the only one in Antrim County, and we're going to talk about that as an example. If a citizen complains, the health department gets involved. If another government agency makes a referral, or if it's related to the beach problem like we talked about when you catch E. coli. So that's when the health department gets involved, those situations. Here's a key thing to know. So it looks like a lot of words, but when the health department gets involved on a complaint, the definition of a failure is the stinky waters that's sitting on top of the grass already. It's not something that, oh, hey, the baffle broke down and you're going to have a problem going later on, or your drain field is not draining very well because it's plugged up at the header. No, it's after it's too late. Their definition of a failure, unfortunately, is sewage on top of the grass. And that's what all those words say. And it says that they're empowered to condemn a system if they find it that way. But I think what the advice of most advocacy groups are, don't wait for the catastrophic failures. Have an inspection process that is going to determine an impending failure and try to take action, corrective action, rather than having to restore or replace the entire system. So that's an important part when we get to what are the recommendations for Torch Lake Township. Keep that in mind, because that's one of the weaknesses of the Milton Township ordinance right now. Okay. These are the options that Torch Lake Township has. They can maintain a status quo. You can implement a time of transfer inspection ordinance, which is like Milton Township. You can have an ordinance for a mandatory pumping ordinance, and you can have an ordinance for a mandatory inspection. There are many places that do those things, and they're very successful. They're not popular. They're not popular with real estate companies. They're not popular with residents, but they're very effective. It depends on at what level you want to either avoid problems or address problems. I don't know that we recognize we have serious problems with high number of failure rates here. I don't think we do, okay? But at some point in time, those are the steps that should be taken, especially as systems age more and more. And that is a big factor in this area. There are a lot of systems beyond their design life. So the township needs to make a choice, one of those four things. Let's take a look at the likely outcome of that. So from a policy standpoint, public health and environmental impacts, older systems are likely failing or about to failure, which could impact water resources in the Elk Rapids chain of lakes watershed. So all of us in Antrim County, we all live within this gigantic watershed, which is unique in Michigan and unique in most of the United States. It starts at the top of Antrim County, goes all the way through, goes out to the Grand Traverse Bay. It's miles and miles of waterfront, it's miles and miles of rivers and lakes and streams. And right now, the system is changing. There's a lot of money, a lot of science that's going on monitoring the water. This is a factor that's in that. There's a lot of other factors that are involved. But we want to keep that in mind from a policy standpoint. No oversight after installation. That's the problem. That's the way we define a problem. But a good system is design life of 25 to 30 years. And I think if we looked at the tax rolls, we'd probably find out at least half of our homes are at least that old. So if you're not having a mandatory requirement for inspections and replacement, at some point, the majority of your systems are going to be failing. And then it's kind of too late to prevent serious environmental or health problems. Okay, let's move on. So if we decide to implement time of transfer inspection, what are the key advantages? It's specific to a local county or township. So if we're talking Torch Lake Township and we happen to elect to go down that path, it's specific to our township. It protects public health because at least at some point in time for each property, it will get some inspection. If problems are discovered and corrected, you can add to the longevity or extend the design life of the system if it's done correctly. It protects ground and surface water quality by addressing nutrient levels and pollution. I think that's really a big one, again, because of our precious watershed that we all live in. And it provides a lot of data for the health department and local government. And that's one of the things that, if you go read the report, one of the experiences of Milton Township is it took a lot of guesswork out of what the failure rates were, because at least every time a piece of property transferred, there was an inspection conducted and they could start tallying up how many failures that were identified. It's consistent with the Antrim County Master Plan. It addresses concerns of local citizens and lake associations and protects local property values. Okay. What are the drawbacks or difficulties? township discussion is going to have to start with acceptance of the problem. And we all share in that. So as people object to trying to implement anything, try to keep in mind what the problem is, because the problem affects everybody. And if the time of transfer is selected, I would recommend that at least we use the Milton Township as a template, because there's a lot of experience and a lot of common knowledge with that. There's also some weaknesses, and we'll point some of those out. All right. And the township should consider experiences of other local authorities. Like in Leelanau, the Leelanau District Health Department is right now working on a time of transfer septic ordinance that they're going to do based on the Benzie County. This is just a recent development in the last 3 months. So they're probably a very good resource to talk about the development of their ordinance. Let's talk about what improvements should be done if we use Milton Township as a template, or any other templates for that matter. Right now, we talked about the definition of failures. The sewage is already on the grass. There's a lot of other things that can and should be identified as failures or impending failures that if they're caught, you can prevent the contamination of wells, drinking water, groundwater, lakes, streams, or rivers. Okay? So that takes a little bit of work, but it's well worth it. And if you talk to the septic haulers, the people that actually maintain and service them, they'll give you a start list right away. Gamogers would come over here and tell you, here's the top things that you got to go look for. You put them in your ordinance to make inspections for pending failures. Exemptions for family transfers. A lot of our property transfers probably go family members. Well, one of the weaknesses that they've done in Milton Township is if the property transfer is within a family, they don't have to go through the inspection. We're not comfortable with that, and I think that we missed an opportunity to find pending failures. And then the other one is the 5-year recent pump out. So if a seller says, well, I just had this thing pumped out 5 years ago, I'm exempt from having to have it inspected. Well, what did you do in those 5 years? Did you have, 14 people living in the house? Was it a 2-bedroom house? They regret doing that. Okay, so if we're going to start off with a new one, let's not fall into that trap. Enforce updates to current code level. That's a very big one, because there has been improvements over the years. And if you're selling a house that's got a 30-year-old septic system in it, and you don't find the failure, all right, but it's not going to be good for another 30 years. You shouldn't do that. You should say, well, it doesn't meet today's codes. These are the upgrades required. Now, again, you get pushbacks because it's going to make the sale of the house more difficult, because there'll be repair costs involved. But you got to understand that we're protecting the resources for everybody. And if you don't do it, then it's going to end up with the sewage on the grass, and everybody's going to have a problem anyway. So that's a big one. But again, that's what we recommend for improvement over the Milton Township. And then the last one is require replacement assistance beyond design life. If you got a house that's being sold and it's got a 40-year-old system in it, it's time over. Just tell them it's got to be replaced. I know that's probably going to be impossible, but that's our recommendation. So I think we got one more wrap up. This is what the Milton Township ordinance looks like. I've given copies to Bob, so the planning commission or whoever's going to work on the ordinance can have the full thing. And I'm usually available if I'm not playing golf. I don't answer my phone when I'm playing golf. So if somebody's got questions, I'd be happy to help out. Anybody got any questions tonight? Okay.
I was president of TLA 4 years ago, and that was when the septic ordinance came about. So we had our new septic system where it worked. We had to put a pipe in at the end of the drain field. And I asked what's his name from the health department, the leader, I don't know if I mentioned, Walt? Walt? No, the director of the health department. No. Not the down with the. Yeah. He goes, and I said, why is the pipe there? He said, so I can inspect it.
Right.
In a couple, 3 years.
Yeah.
Well, there's no ordinance, but I have put it in now.
Yeah. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about trying to update systems in new ordinance. No, that one makes perfect sense. Okay, the older systems don't have inspections.
No, this is at the end of it.
I know exactly what it is. And, you know, that's one of the failure modes, is that you get is difficult to find. If your head's swapped up, it's not getting to you, right?
So if you
And
ask
that little
TLA,
simple height allows for inspections.
if you ask TLA, that's what you assist you on. So-
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I got a lot of information for Fred, so
Oh, okay.
he was gonna, Fred was gonna come.
Fred was accepting your roof for TLA at one time.
Yeah. I thought Fred was.
One question. What do they do to inspect the system?
Well,
Other than just water laying on top of the ground?
well, basically what they do two things. One is they pump the system out.
Okay.
So that you can occasionally either use a camera or optic, go down and look and see, is there sludge buildup that you're gonna bump out? Is the baffle completely broke? Is there cracks in the walls? I mean, really dramatic.
Well, that has to do with the tanks.
That's the tank.
How do they inspect the drainage?
They don't, unless they have this inspection.
Okay.
Okay, like my system, my system completely replaced at the end of design life 10 years ago. And they all done because we're inspection. Oh, well, we don't do that. What do you mean you don't do that? And then the next year, my neighbor got his put in, and they put in.
Did they give you certificates so you can pass that along?
So they really don't have a way to inspect the field?
No, unless you put the inspection plan. Okay.
Bill.
Now, you can do, there's another way to do it, is they dig up, you know where they are. You can dig up center, you can dig up the end, and you can see if there's anything that's going to saturation.
Okay, my field has inspection at both ends.
Good.
So what would they do? Just run a camera down through there and see what's going on?
They,
Or see if the grass is
Or
growing?
so
Grass
they
is
can
growing.
camera, they can do a cell phone.
Okay.
Whatever.
Thank you.
Yeah. And again, that's another thing that's interesting about this, is there's no uniformity. And that, there's an organization called Flow for the Love of Life, for the love of water, curve. That's one of the things that they're really trying to work with, is trying to say, okay, at a state level, let's try to get some uniformity. Just the definitions is just really, what Michigan is just, it's just so ironic that something that's so detrimental to water resources, we're a water state. Whatever. Make it correct. Yes,
Well,
Al?
I know somebody that was an inspector in Kalamazoo area, and his comment was he really can't be completely sure of the tank is filled, based on the measurements that you have. Again, there are no clear standards, just with one of the health departments there. What does it cost for an inspection?
Well, you know, that's a very good question. That NISA Agency report that I referenced, they got it up to about $550. But there are places that are charging $250, $350. They all seem to be a little bit different, and again, it's because of what it's on their checklist. But they went through a lot of effort in that Agency report of trying to get a reasonable cost established so that people will know what they expect. Especially if you're going to get involved in time and transfer. That if people don't object, they say, okay, fine, well, first thing they find out, we gotta pay $500. Whatever. But there's a wide range in that element, and that's something that you don't wanna start off too low, you don't wanna be too high, you just have to be over.
The health department used to count your bedrooms. Now they count any room you can put a bed in.
Exactly, the change definition.
So you have you have to replace your field, you may not have room in your lot to replace it based on their size.
Right.
So what happens in that case? You lose your.
Well, you can engineer the system with the mound system, you can do a pump back, you can buy, sometimes you buy property, adjacent property and do a pump system. There's a lot of solutions, but there always have to be custom fit to the particular situation.
What I don't understand, though, I'm not against what you want to do, is you have a septic system that's been there for 30 years and you replace it, and now you must invite it. It worked for 30 years very well, with all the company and the kids and grandkids and all that to show up at your house. And all of a sudden, we're now required to expand this thing based on the fact that for 2 weeks out of the year, you might have it over capacity at your house. That didn't make sense.
Well,
That didn't make any sense.
but there's two things to your point. Number one, you don't know that it worked well for 30 years, okay? And
Well, I think
secondly,
your statement up there was 25 to 30.
yeah, that's the typical design life. But that design life includes the soil, So if you had a septic system working for 30 years, but now the soil's completely saturated in nutrients, and you want to put a little bit bigger system in the same soil, that doesn't mean you got another 30 years.
But go the other way. If it's worked for 30 years well, soil's not saturated, and now I must replace it. That doesn't add up. It makes it harder. And that's not made any sense to me, or to many people I've talked with.
Well, but again, you presume that the design criteria that was established 30 years ago was adequate. And I think they learned since then that there are standards have to be different for different reasons, because for one thing, they know a lot more now. But it all gets down to, do you want to protect the groundwater? That's the most important thing out of this whole house.
But Tom, I've got this little office and there's a couch in there, and I'm gonna count that as a judgment.
Yeah.
Help me with that. That doesn't-
Because you may have somebody sleeping.
Okay.
That's the way they want to do it.
Okay.
Tom, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And it's a good introduction for us.
Do we have a copy of this PowerPoint?
I will make copies for everybody.
Just a quick question, quick, simple answer too. Benzies worked on it, Leelanol's working on it. And it sounds like county to county, is this something Antrim could be working on too? Or is that, did you propose it to them? Just a simple answer.
The 2016 report was done for Antrim County, the one that I referenced.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know, I didn't know who to call, really. I don't know if there's any current active activity for at the county level.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
All right. Did you want to add
Hey, Bill, when we bought Rusty's house, we didn't have to, but we had a septic inspection done. Because being a realtor, yeah, we hate it because it could hold the deal up, but I've seen it save people's butt quite a few times. And the reason why we wanted it done is because the sellers are responsible for that. And what he did was they dug up in the drain field. They want to check the stone, make sure the stone's clean, because if the stone's getting black, then that's a sign. And he ran a hose down there, and I asked him what he was doing. He said he just wanted to make sure that it was holding enough, like the water flow that was going into it. And then he got in there and inspected the tank too. USA Home Inspections out of Central Lake, John Springstead does it. Traverse City area, a lot of inspection companies do that. Matt Indish out of Williamsburg. So.
All right, very good. Again, thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Moving to the next item, agenda for board action. We have no old business. We will move to item number 1, which is to consider a legal firm to work with us on Barnes Park, because as most of you know, Todd had a conflict. My first backup was also conflicted with Antrim County. And I was wondering if Antrim County was taking up all the lawyers around here. So anyway, you have on your desk, I wrote a new motion because the third firm, Young, Graham, and Wendling, I talked to Peter Wendling, and they are willing to accept it. The good news is that Todd had given him a heads up that I would be calling. He's already done some research, and he's very excited about moving forward. So I did write out a motion, and so board, any discussion related to what I presented?
So just,
This-
it's Young, Graham, Wendling that we're looking at.
Yes,
Not-
as the firm, right. Yep, I mean, this thing was moving around.
Yeah.
With the first group, they couldn't get back to me until Monday, and then it was scrambling with Peter this morning. He and I played telephone tag.
We had them in the past years as our firm attorneys. They represented Township Township years ago too, also.
All right, so,
I'll make the motion.
all right, so the motion to approve the hiring of the legal firm of Young, Graham, and Wendling specifically to handle any Torch Lake Township legal advisory requirements associated with Barnes Park at $175 an hour.
And who do they work with? You,
Say- They'll be
Sarah,
working with me and Sarah.
Okay.
In fact, at this point, Sarah, just a real quick update, Sarah is in the process of writing a letter that will be going to the Antrim County Administrator, Terry, the Township Chairperson,
The
or
coun-
the County
be
Chairperson.
Board of Chair.
Yep, and to James Hunter. So they will be notified of the ordinance, and then basically we'll see what they want to do, what the next step.
So we don't need that in the motion. This
No,
is fine here.
No, it's
Okay,
just
yep.
good backup to have.
Okay, thank you.
All right, motion is made. Who seconded?
Well, I have discussions. We'll go ahead and get a second first.
All right,
First second.
I'll second it. All right, discussion on the motion.
What have I been sleeping through? What's going on with Barnes Park that's affecting us? What did I not know? That we need an attorney.
I don't know, Kath, it's been going on for a week now at least.
I haven't heard anything.
All right, well, they have,
I mean, I know they're
Presented-
doing a reno or an enlargement, right?
well, that's it. It's an expansion of a non-conforming lot.
Ah,
And so they can't do that without township approval.
oh,
So that is why we need a lawyer.
thank you.
Any other questions, board? If not, then the motion has been made and seconded to approve the hiring of the legal firm of Young, Graham, and Wenley, specifically to handle any Torch Lake Township legal advisory requirements associated with Barnes Park at $175 per hour. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That concludes new business, which is really the first time that's ever happened here. Not that I'm complaining, don't get me wrong. All right, so moving on. Agenda for board discussion. We have two items tonight. The first one, as you recall, in our minutes, we had two meetings associated with an emergency fire vehicle. We evaluated that. We went out and had a maintenance review of it, came back with $4,100 worth of work to be done. Township said, hey, we'll do 3, we're not doing 4, so we killed that deal. In the process of that discussion, Kevin had brought up the fact that we have a fire truck, the tanker. Our oldest tanker is approaching 25 years. And so at this point, that's why I put in my monthly newsletter that we've got a decision we're going to have to make. And so what I wanted to do was have a general discussion with the board as to what are our options and what do we want to talk about. So I've asked Kevin to come up and let me just kind of walk through a couple of things. And I think I gave this to the board ahead of time, but the tanker's approaching 25 years. Currently, the maintenance challenge for us is to fix the steering. And the insurance standards dictate that at 25 years, the water capacity of the tanker will not count, and that will negatively impact our ISO rating. That will potentially and most likely increase the insurance fire coverage costs for our homeowners. We can either do a repair and keep it in service and allow the ISO score to increase. We can evaluate a short-term purchase of an older equipment, or we can evaluate the purchase of new equipment. And I just had there a couple of options. If you remember, I said that on December 1st, I'm thinking we're going to have somewhere between $300,000 and $350,000. We have a gentleman here that will be discussing the new equipment, but new equipment is around $400,000, so it would be an option of cash, debt, or debt only. So those are the types of things we have to think about. And Kevin, I'll turn the rest over to you.
Yeah, as you all see that there was that equipment replacement list that was in your packet. And you'll notice that the manufacturing dates of each piece of equipment is on that and the year that it turns 25. And we were discussing the tanker down at Station 2. It's in 1998. That's why it's on top of the list. It turns 25 next year. And that magic number 25 keeps coming up because that's part of the NFPA requirements on fire apparatus, that they say that when a unit gets 25 years old, it must be retired. Okay? So that presents most communities and villages with this financial discussion on what to do with that piece of equipment that is expiring. So that leaves us three choices to discuss. One is financing a new fire apparatus. Two, we've tried to buy a used fire apparatus. Or three, we refurbish the one we have and update it and prepare for maintenance costs through the years. Because the NFPA looks at it as it's 25 years old. So you could put new tires on it, but that engine's still 25 years old. The transmission is still 25 years old. The water tank itself that holds the 2,000 gallons is 25 years old. So these things you have to factor in. Are you ready to accept replacing different items on that unit as the years progress on that? And the one thing is with that also is that can no longer be considered a primary response unit. So that means if we get a 911 call of a structure fire, that cannot be a primary response unit. So that's where it comes into play. It affects our water supply on that. So with the option of buying a used one, that is highly unlikely. They are, if you're looking, you want to purchase one, at least maybe it has 10 years of life left in it, but they're hard to find, hard to come by. If they are out there, they're sold before they ever hit the market because people have eyes looking for these pieces of equipment and they're informed right away. So if you buy something a little bit newer, I had a 2012, but that was $197,000 for a 2012 tanker. So there's kind of a, do you want to spend $200,000 on a tanker to where possibly in 5 or 6 years, you're going to be back here discussing the replacement of that piece of equipment. So, or is it better to invest that $200,000 into a purchase of a new fire apparatus? The third part, there again on the refurbishing, you can put all the money into it you want, but it's never going to raise the value of that fire apparatus. It's still going to be a 25-year-old vehicle. If you keep it for 4 years, do maintenance repairs on it, then it's going to be a 29-year-old. You'll never get the value out of it that you're putting in for maintenance repairs. So if you can get a decent trade-in on that, that's what I would recommend, because the longer you wait, the less you're going to get in for a trade-in value on that piece of equipment also. They sell them, but they're not necessarily going to fire departments. They go to orchards, things like that, or people that need water trucks or things like that. So the NFPA is basically, it guides us in everything that we do. They regulate us basically on all their policies, including our training, our certification, the type of fire apparatus we get, how they're put together. And most agencies incorporate all these rules into their business, just like the building code, the building that we were in, NFPA regulations, fire sprinklers, fire suppression, lights if the power goes out, Department of Transportation, same thing. So everybody pulls from that. So when you get the ISO rating, they look at that and they come in and individually look at a fire department, and they have 50% of their score comes from personnel, training, your engines, and your equipment. The other 40% of an ISO rating comes from water supply. They look at how fast that you can supply water to a structure fire. And that, like I said, that comes up with 40%. So if you don't have a primary response vehicle that holds water, that possibly could affect your score. And then the other thing that we have to consider and for this is that on that equipment list, you can see as the dates expire, if we keep this tanker and just do repairs on it, in 5 years, we're going to have another tanker ready for replacement. So there again, that has to be retired. It has to be a secondary vehicle. It can't be a primary. So there again, you got two pieces of equipment now that can't be first response. So that could really impact the ISO score. I'm not saying it could, but most likely will. So these are all types of considerations that the board has to think in the purchase of a new fire apparatus. Is it more beneficial to buy new or try to keep the old one going and have an effect on the township? Because you never know. I mean, it's a roll of the dice. You could roll out that door and the engine go out on a structure fire. You don't know because it's a 25-year-old engine. Same thing, like I said, with the transmission. Transmission could go out. And to upgrade these things, you have to upgrade them to the current NFPA standard. So if you start upgrading the vehicle, then you're going to have to go by what the NFPA requires now for a fire apparatus. So that would be a whole inspection of this vehicle. The chassis might have to be replaced. The water tank might have to be replaced, different things like that. I mean, there's a long list. And the ISO incorporates 31 points that the NFPA, or codes that the NFPA has. And that's how they do their inspection. It's 31. It was quite the eye-opener when I went to the ISO thing and see where they got their information from, and it's right from the NFPA. So, you know, that's where we're at. So it's up for discussion, and we do have a gentleman here from Spencer Manufacturing. Their specialty is making fire apparatus. So if the board would like him to come up, he might be able to answer some questions that you have, possibly that I can't at this time. So I'll let him come up and introduce himself.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to
Kevin?
ask Kevin some questions at some
Well,
point.
we'll let him come back.
Okay,
He's-
all right.
We'll have the gentleman as a guest. We'll let him speak.
Thank you. I'm Steve Buckner. I'm with Spencer Manufacturing. I should look back and see how many years ago it was I was here. I sold you the pumper that you currently have. I know some of the people on the board remember.
Yes,
When
yes,
we
I
were
do.
delivering that pumper, when we were delivering that pumper was
I signed the note.
when you rolled the tanker out front, which caused them to have to purchase a used one at that time, which is the one I think we're dealing with right now. Where to go? First of all, I wanna state something that maybe it's obvious to all of you, and sometimes Kevin and I and many department people talk about NFPA, ISO, all these different organizations and what they do. ISO, when ISO gives you points, and maybe you all know this, when ISO determines your points, that's what your constituents or residents, that's what they're gonna pay for their insurance. It's basically a formula that they use to determine how your insurance is. So the better your department is equipped and has certain things, it saves you hundreds of dollars a year on insurance. If you are a fully hydranted area, it's a whole different ballgame and it's much lower yet. But that's not what we're dealing with here. So with that said, I guess I'm here to answer all kinds of questions. We've been working on a design to replace that truck, and I'm not here to present that unless you guys want more information about that. But really, I'm just here to answer questions and help move this along.
Well, I've got one because it's hard to get some information. So the ISO code, Kevin tells me we're at a 6.9, 6.0. So as a range of codes, Kevin has said we can't go below 6 because we're rural.
Correct.
So how high?
Technically, there are some things you can do to get lower. I've talked to very few departments. I mean, that's like your glass ceiling. That's like as far as typically you can go. So what Kevin is saying is true, but I have seen departments get below a 6 by putting 5 full-time staff guys in the station. So
Yep.
you know, yes, there are ways to take that next step, but realistically, 6 is as far as you're gonna go.
All right, so if we kept this vehicle and our water supply drops 2,000 gallons, on a ballpark basis, is it an exponential difference that comes? So we go from 6 to 7, or because of that drop, it should we go from 6 to 9?
I'll be very clear, I'm not an ISO person, but I work with a lot of departments and
Yeah.
listen to what they say. I would say in those instances, you'd probably be in somewhere in the neighborhood of a 7 or an 8.
Okay,
And with that, if I had to correlate to dollars, let's just say every resident, and this is all just,
ballpark,
Rough.
because we don't have.
yeah, let's say $750 a year
Okay,
to go a point in that system. And that's just rough. I mean, you're gonna have a different demographic than a rural that doesn't have a huge lake with a lot of nice houses. You know, it's all based on what the values are of the homes. So it may be higher here than other places.
They would
Because of
do
the
this
home.
to our score because it's 25 years old?
It will come into effect based on when that piece of equipment, I'm not sure of that exact rule, how that works.
Well,
I know
you've said
did
two
some
things
research
here.
on that
One, you
today.
said that, not you, and both, one, you said that they would look at the tanker and they run inspect. I saw them do many of the equipment studies here. So if this tanker that we have is 25 years old, but it's operating out, it's perfect, cannot be on a first run, that's okay. But it functions very well and passes all of their score, then that would not have an effect on our score. Would that be correct?
It would be, I believe that's correct. However, looking at that tanker myself, I looked at it here a week ago. I was up here and I was down there measuring up a hose bed cover. And I looked that tanker over a little bit, and we're actually in the process of saying how much the value is. My company is looking into that. That's not a division that I am in charge of. But with that said, that truck, I think you're gonna start to see things that are a problem that you'll have to address and get fixed.
If I had to put an engine, I'm playing devil's advocate with you.
No, go for it.
If I had to put an engine, a transmission, a whole brand new tank on that truck, would it cost me $400,000?
It would not, but it also wouldn't, it wouldn't meet it may not, I should say it that way. It may not meet all the NFPA requirements. There may be other things that you have to upgrade on that truck to meet what the current standards are. And so, let me see if I can find an example. Let me give it to you this way. And this is, I know that I'm a salesman standing here, and so I want to be very careful, not to present it from a salesman standpoint, because I'm here to sell trucks. That's what I'm here. However, on that particular truck, let's take over the road trucks or delivery trucks. If we took a truck that's on the road that's 25 years old, it probably has 1 million miles on it, and it's done. That truck, you look at it, let's say it's got 30,000 miles on it. At 30,000, you say it's got a ton of life left. What happens is I go to Cummins and I say, hey, Cummins, I need this part for this engine. And they're like, we don't make that engine anymore. We don't supply that part anymore. You got to go to aftermarket. You got to go to, and there are certain things like brakes that are specific to fire industry that may be required that they may not make for that. I don't know for sure on that model and that situation, but I'm just saying over time, you're going to get into situations where you're going to run out of, we'll replace the axle then and put different brakes on it, a whole different upgrade, all that to new. At some point, it's not, in my opinion, going to be the best benefit for the residents of the area, the best spent money, because it's going to be continuing to spend money over something that all of a sudden the tank starts to leak. Or we have to refurb the truck in order to meet NFPA. We refurb the truck and have to do some of the things and find out the tank is bad or the cradle is bad. Well, then we're replacing the truck or the tank, then we might as well replace the whole truck. You see what I'm saying? It's at what point do you get, and I believe in trying to get a truck as far as you can get it. I really do. Because I see rural departments every day struggle with, wow, this is a lot of money, because it's gone up a lot over the last few years. But at the same token, you can run the numbers and look at maintenance and you guys talked about maintenance on a truck of $4,000 or something. Those things are gonna add up over time, and it's gonna get in a position that you're gonna say, man, we could have went, however many years under let's just take our warranty, you're gonna have a couple of year warranty right off the bat. Nothing's gonna be, have to be covered under that. You're probably, and I can't say this for certain because I'm not, it doesn't always happen this way, but you're probably gonna get 10 years of life out of that thing before you're really doing anything to it as far as maintenance go, other than your routine maintenance. You're not gonna have a steering box go out or, have the ball joints go out, that type of thing. Does that help answer the question?
Sort of. I mean, it's a toss-up. I think even a new one, you could even have difficulty with if they're changing all the standards like they do with septic tanks in terms of number of bedrooms. You run into, everybody's putting out money. Ballpark, Bob, can you tell me what the fund equity is in the fire department?
Yeah, well, as I said, if taking what our budget expenditures are for the next 3 months and the current balance, it's about 329,000,
Fund balance.
the fund balance.
Okay.
So the idea, that's jumping ahead, looking at financing, but you could put a third down, borrow the other 2/3. But as Kevin said, I got another truck rolling at us in 5 years.
I know we're looking at $800,000 here.
Well, and that's the thing. My question, follow-up to your point, was ISO looks at the number of gallons of water that can be presented at a fire. Am I correct? So we're going to lose roughly a quarter to a third of our capacity.
How?
Because if that truck doesn't count towards your capacity, because what they're saying is after 25 years, that truck can't count as a water delivery truck. We can still use it as a water delivery truck, but in the ISO score, it's now exceeded the 25 years, therefore it doesn't count.
So if we had 3 trucks, our ISO would get better? So it's a number of how much we can put
No,
at the
you
fire?
got to the limit that you were at 6.
Okay.
It's the amount of water on hand that we can use. That's why we were looking at a 3,000 gallon tanker, because the difference in the price between 2,000 and a 3,000 gallon tanker was $8,000. So we were figuring that if we purchased a 3,000 gallon tanker now, if we were able to do that, and then when the other tanker, it got time to replace that, if financially we could go ahead and purchase another 3,000 gallon tanker, we just gained 2,000 gallons on our water supply that we don't have now. That's like having an extra 2,000 gallon tanker, but we're going to purchase 2 tankers to do that. Plus, the engines have 1,000 gallon water on board. So right away, if we pulled into your driveway, we got 7,000 gallons of water to initially fight that fire with the cap system. Using the foam makes the water go farther. So
right.
that gives us more water on hand. So
So it sounds like we're due.
Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, you could look at a new truck now, and then when the next one comes up in 28, we have the option of maybe extending that life, because now you've picked up 1,000 gallons now. I'm going to lose 2, so I'm really only down 1,000 gallon. That's probably not as bad as that's for the ISO score. I still have those 2,000 to go and fight a fire.
Mm-hmm.
So we're actually up 1,000 gallons from where we are today. So that's why, later on in the meeting, I've got this capital plan I want to go through, because the idea is we got to start thinking about this sequentially over a 25-year period, because that's when that pumper goes out. So the idea here is we need to evaluate the different approaches of handling this, along with looking at our ISO score. And in the capital plan, as I said, we got 2 ambulances that are fairly old, and we got that bucket. Now, that's a different fund we can work from, but I guess my question for you and Sharon, in the ambulance fund, we have flexibility in millage rates. Do we have the same flexibility in the fire fund?
Same thing,
Same thing, yes.
special assessment.
So that's all part of the capital plan then. If we look at this, how do we start planning this with a minimal amount of millage that then is specifically for capital replacement? Because we don't have any plans for that. All this stuff is coming due now, and you know, when you look at it, I did a rough estimate. I mean, if you take the pumper out there today, and we've got 20 years left, at 5% inflation, that truck's going to be about $1.3 million. I mean, nobody in this room is prepared to think about what are you going to have to do in a millage to cover that. So that's why I'm saying there's different ways of looking at it, and that's why I'm bringing it up for board discussion, is that it's a longer term discussion, and we've got different pieces to play with, and how do we play that with the fact that we can increase incrementally the millage and allocate those dollars specifically for capital improvement. It's a lot for the board to think about.
Can I jump in for just a quick second?
Depends if you're going to ruin my dance.
No, it's going to enhance it. We're going to full out. I always said we got that ARPA money. I always felt in my heart that ARPA money should go half to ambulance and half to fire department for the specifics of the needs of the township. So roughly estimate, there's $62,000 of ARPA money, and we have to spend it within 2 years anyway and my feeling is, I don't want to make a motion tonight or anything like that, but I think that this is a purpose for the township, and this is something that would be put to good use too. So without the fund balance, we have approximately, it's a little high in the numbers of $62,000 each. That could go a long ways also.
But that's part of the capital plan, because if I
Right.
look, I've got the 2 ambulances that we need to think about. And so maybe instead of splitting it 50-50, you take the 123 and
There we go.
apply it here, and now I've got a piece of that nut covered.
Right, because even at that, the ambulances are all in good shape right now. They're not going to need to be replaced, I don't think, within 2 years anyway. So $123,000 in ARPA money could go towards a down payment easily on that sort of thing. My question is, I'm hearing too many cinnamons. I'm hearing MPA and I'm hearing NAPA, and am I hearing these wrong? What?
NFPA.
And what?
NFPA.
FPA.
Which is the same, it's the same thing as if you have any electricians in the group.
Okay, that's okay. What does MFPA stand for?
NFPA, it's National.
Oh,
Fire
N,
Protection
national.
Association.
Okay,
They're the ones that govern all the fire, all your electrical code, all of your.
so I was
Sprinkler
hearing
systems
too
for
many
your
numbers.
buildings.
So it's NFPA across the board then. NFPA. Okay, now, my question is, and I think you've answered it along the way, so bear with me though. How many trucks are needed for that score to be in the ISO? ISO, I'm sorry.
The ISO is they are out there doing the scores. It's not
Okay.
NFPA. NFPA sets rules. That's all they do. ISO comes out and verifies what equipment you have and what you're doing.
Okay,
What
so,
you can do with that equipment.
okay, so because we have an older one in the fleet, if that is not considered in this score, does the score go down then?
It
Because
actually
we don't
goes
have that
up.
2,000.
It's opposite of the way you think. It would say down, but it goes to a 7 instead of a 6. So 10 is I'll say the worst,
Oh, okay.
and 1 is the best.
Oh, gotcha.
No one ever gets a 1.
Okay.
I mean, I think the closest I ever came was about a 3.
I gotcha. Okay, so yeah, there's that score then. All right. I just got to get some things in my head here. Okay, I'm good. So my thing was too, that the 3,000 gallon tanker could go a long way, even though this other 2003 tanker is that could probably be stretched because we have more water in this type of thing then.
Well,
And I know we've talked about that, so that was all my comments on here, so.
That's the idea behind the meeting that I want to call, either a meeting or a working session or something in which the board sits down and starts looking at this stuff and starts to evaluate, what are our options? How do we mitigate the surprise, if you will, of the big numbers? But we gotta set in motion something for this township for the next 25 years.
Okay, my next question, if the board, because I went through it before with our other truck, it took a long period of time. It took a long period of time to get all the contracts done, took a long period of time to get all our financing done, and it took a long time to get phase 1 and 2 done of the truck itself. This is a process that could take a year or two, correct?
Right now, we're at 495 days.
So that's over a year.
Over a year. So
Right.
We're pushing 2024 at that point. So that's what I think.
So we're
where the urgency is, that was something I was.
This is what do you budget consideration now, next year's budget, and it will go into the,
Well, I think I'm not too concerned about the budget.
right.
We have money in the
right.
bank. The question is, and we are credited as excellent. So
Absolutely.
Let's think about how we're going to do this, but to some extent, the board needs to consider, not at this meeting, but
Right.
at the next meeting, do we move forward on one of the three options? And
Right.
If we're going to move forward on a new one, then let's make the decision and get that ball rolling, and then figure out during our plan, how do you want to finance it? Do you want to
Right.
use the whole 123, borrow balance, throw a little more on top of that? Because again, it's just ballpark. You got 5 years before the next one. Do you want to try to pay off this one and then be prepared for the next one? And that's why we got to plan it.
Totally understand all that. When we did the big truck before, we didn't have enough money for a down payment. We had to do a loan 1 and a loan 2. You remember that? So we had 2 separate notes, 2 separate payments, 2 separate everything.
It's a beautiful truck, by the way.
I know, but it was very difficult because we didn't have the money to put down as a down payment during that. So what is the requirement for a down payment type of scenario?
Down payment on this one is roughly, what's that? Yeah, 125, and it's roughly 6 months from.
Well, we've got ARPA money here then.
We're out of sequence in a way though, because that means 25 years from now, we go through the same thing over a 5-year period.
You
And,
and I won't have to worry about that.
I'm going to try to stay here.
I don't plan on being here in 25
I still
years.
buy extended
I'm not.
warranties. Well, again, looking at the burden at $1 million or whatever that might be, it would be, it'd be nice if you had half the life on one, and 12 and a half years.
Ellen, that's why I don't want to try to solve the
Right.
problem tonight.
Gotcha.
We're
I
just-
understand. I
All
understand.
I want to do
We
is
want to
set
move
the
it along
table,
here.
Yeah.
and I'm going to set up a meeting that we're going to approach this at.
Sharon, the only thing I wanted to add, the delay time from the time if we agree to purchase a new fire truck, like you said, could be quite a while. As long as you can show that you have a fire apparatus on order and that you're getting a new one, it will not affect the ISO rate.
Oh, good.
They recognize that. I just wanted
That
to
was
throw
my
that in
question.
for you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and for the information.
Nice to
Yes,
see you
and If you
again.
have questions when you reach out, after you have your committee, if you have questions,
Yep.
feel free to reach out.
Yeah, I'm sure
I pulled out a bunch of
Once we get
fun.
into the weeds on this thing, but I'm
I-
hoping to keep it, it's a numbers game
And I
at this
appreciate
point.
it. I appreciate what you're doing right now, and this isn't just, but you're setting the schedule and working with Kevin to set that schedule. There's many departments that I go to that the board is like, what? Wait a minute, we gotta, fire truck we got, it hasn't been laid out and it needs to be. It needs to be. We're dealing with enough money nowadays and the amount of money that it takes, we have to stay ahead of this. So I appreciate it. Thank
All
you.
right. thank
There may
you.
be grants out there. There may be some grants out there we can look at too, so.
All right, board. Item number 2, Rick, well, wait, hang on. I'll read kind of an introduction for everybody else because they don't get this. Just as background, Rick has requested a new easement along Cemetery West border drainage to a drainage field to the north of the cemetery property line. He recently requested a variance for new construction of a home, which is across from the Torch Lake Township Cemetery property. The ZBA denied that. Insufficient space to put in a proper septic system is a problem he's facing. He has obtained agreement from the property owner adjacent to the north corner of the Township Cemetery property line to utilize that area for drainage field. Currently, there was approved by the board 30 years ago an easement for Rick's neighbor. Rick is willing to pay for the necessary survey work to show us what is going to be established for the easement. And I'm currently working with the township attorney on the various legal concerns we would need to put into effect for any agreement. So with that as an introduction, I'll let you come forward. Board, you have some pictures. What I have given them, Rick, are these 2 things, just so you know. He always has these fancy charts. These 2 they have.
Okay, well, I saw it.
You got a big one.
Actually, my name is Lenloy, but I go by Rick because I'm named after my father.
And I have trouble with the last name, so I go with the easy one.
Loy is Chinese. As you know, talking about lot 16, here's the last lot out of Evans Resort. And here, the Veterans Memorial is about here as a reference.
Okay.
Currently, our neighbor, and I got a new neighbor that just sold that house Friday. There's a 3-foot easement that runs up the road, up here to the corner. And they actually have 2 easements, but he's only using 1. I suspect this easement here will never be used because they combine the property with other lots, so it's not, they can't break that off and be a non-conforming, so it's. Solomon Thompson he has agreed to let me put septic field here. I contacted Casey from the Health Department of Northwest Michigan. She came out and inspected the property, and it is suitable for a mounted system.
Rick, can you move that microphone around towards you? There you go, thank you.
I should pay more attention to you.
No, audience.
Oh, okay. So,
No, not the audience, is so they could hear you.
okay, so they can hear, okay, I got it. So what I would like to do is run a septic line, high pressure line up here across the back to this 40-foot easement. Currently, this is a 3-foot easement here. I talked to the performance engineering, the civil engineer. He says typically most septic easements are wider than that. So if they ever had to dig them up and ever had to repair them, they could get down. And so I also talked to Dean Ferrier from Ferrier Surveying. And usually, he says, when they do, he sets up a lot of easements for high pressure lines. He says usually they run 5 to 10 foot and usually they make them non-exclusive. So it's, in the future, something else where you'd run up in the same easement. The easements will be in, if you look at the cemetery, this is actually an access drive up here. And there's an access drive across the back. And actually the last little bit, there's a walking, I think a 10-foot walking there. It would probably be, they do horizontal boring, and I was told they can run like 600 feet now. And so from here, they could run, probably just push one line up to here, and probably push one back here and connect them here.
Now, the road's not in there in your picture. There's going to be a road in there,
Right here, the access drive.
right?
They're using it now, but that's not a very active area, the cemetery. Usually there's an access drive, it goes down the center there.
Well, yeah.
Well, there's, Bill Peterson called me today, and he indicated that he thought that the new road that they were going to put in is going to go up parallel to that line. And so the question, his concern was that you would be putting that under that road, which he felt would put, the work that we do on the road at risk. Now, I don't know exactly where everything is going, so I think what I told Bill was that you were going to do the survey to figure out exactly where you were going to run that line up.
Yes.
And the question is that is there any, I guess, the flexibility of running it next to the existing line? Would Casey say that there would be special requirements if we needed to utilize the first easement and not give you a separate easement? Did she?
The first easement is awfully, I don't think that's an issue with Casey.
Yeah, but did she indicate anything about the idea of the extent of the piping that was going to be
The piping with the
required?
first easement,
Well, no, with your easement, did you talk to her about the 600 feet in the connection and all that, or did she just look at your field?
she just looked at the field. She doesn't
Okay.
care how I get there.
All right. So Bill's thoughts were, because we haven't started the road construction work yet.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be done last month, so
Yeah. Bill,
It's not been
based
done
on
yet.
His last comment for the board in our consent agenda.
I mean, they can, when I talked to them, they talked about if this was, 3 feet is awful close to that fence.
Yep. But the idea would be if you measured, if you ran it, because you and I have talked about this, there's two ways we could possibly do this. One would be to use the existing and take it down 8 feet.
Yes.
And maybe add some easement to that, because Bill was saying if you have to repair something down that far, then you need a bigger hole to get there. And so the idea would be if you do your survey for your new easement and we look and see where the road is going to be, if it runs parallel to the new road that's going in, shouldn't have a problem. If it runs under the new road that's going in, then Bill's concern is that if there was ever a problem with that line, then we would be digging up that road. And I think the road's going to be gravel, right? So it's not like we're going to be destroying blacktop.
no, it's
All
going
right.
straight up the middle, all the way down the end of the road, or all the way into the fence line, and all the way back along the fence line and coming up to where that memorial area is.
So the road is going to come up here.
The road is going, there's already,
There's one that comes up to the center.
and that's going to be improved. That's going to be improved because it's
Kind of sandy.
right, it's a sandy start. That's going to be improved. It's going to go all the way to the back of the fence line. And then it's going to come all the way back around the fence line, all the way down to the memorial area and come back around in towards before that building.
Turn before the memorial area.
It's going to be real tight to it.
Because it's really, there's not a lot of room between the memorial and the fence.
It's going to be in front of the memorial, that road. It's not going to be in the back of the memorial. It's going to come around the front because we had to vacate some lots, cemetery lots, in order to get that road coming around there.
Because where they put the memorial there, it's all, I can see that would be tight.
Yeah, it was, memorial was, yeah, it was moved a little bit. originally, but anyway, yeah, but that's why we had to vacate some cemetery lots in order to get that road around through there.
Now, Sharon, are there cemetery lots up in that area to the north?
Yes,
So that then,
mine's one of them.
well, we certainly don't want to cause a problem there.
I
Just-
shouldn't say
just
that, but
saying.
that's my second home up there soon.
So I guess what you're saying is that the road is going to run real close to that fence line because you can't move it any further inland because you got more sites in there.
Yes,
Well, this is why we're having the board discussion.
But
To-
like I say, this access is, I think, 20 feet here. I actually think on the end it's 24 foot
From,
the fence to supposed to be this area from here to here. I believe it's a little bit more than 20.
all
it's,
right,
it's all staked out up there. Have you seen this, the flags and everything?
I was up there last night too.
Because Gary Mortensen up there and the Draughts were up there, everybody was up there and they had staked it all out, so I don't know if you've seen those, but
But I do know that, looking at, they do not have a clear, let's say, survey of the cemetery. I don't know if you've seen what Morrison's have. It's kind of, it's a piece of paper they pull out and they got people listed. They say, okay, this is, this, bought this one, this one.
well, that new cemetery section is more well-designed than the old section that we had, so,
That's where I'm going to be.
yeah. So,
it's really an uplifting discussion, isn't it? I mean,
I don't know if it's up there.
where are we all going to be buried here?
I told him I want to be buried this way so I can watch, see the lake, you know?
My grandmother paid $12 for a 6-foot lot.
Oh, well, we better kind of look for that
So,
background.
so I guess,
I have a couple questions.
yeah, go ahead.
Rick, what do all the other homes do for septics? Because your lot seems to be bigger than all the other ones.
Are you familiar with Harville?
I guess not.
Jennifer and the Cars, they have a very decent amount of money, except for Janet, is my neighbor there.
Okay.
The Brownwood clan.
The Brownwood clan, basically, they are buying everything up. We have these three here, Janet has a couple here, and I think a lot of them, they put them over here, but they're up, except for, you got Sue down here, up here, and then you got Janet has one house here, and I think hers, Janet, is yours? 21? You got 21, is yours septic system on Solomon's property too?
No, it's behind the garage.
Okay. Hers is behind her garage on one, she has two houses, she has one on the lake, and 21.
Okay.
So the homes that are on the water pump it across the street?
This one, the hub here, pumps it up to here.
What about the other ones?
Well, he tore it down, he bought these and tore them down.
Was there septics on those?
There was septics on those, on the lake side, but they were put in years ago. These were torn down to make a bigger parking lot. And then he bought another house and he puts that over here.
Okay. And how big of a house are you proposing? How many bedrooms?
It's been downsized, the footprint is gonna be 24 by 40. Probably be 2-story, so 1,600 square feet.
Oh, okay.
In order to get the minimums, I have to go 2-story.
Gotcha. I didn't know if it was gonna be a big house, so that's why it had to be moved across the street versus building a smaller home and having it right there next to your house.
It's been downsized, but I really well.
He doesn't have it looks big, but when you get out there and you're trying to put in, and Alan, you've been out there, when you try to put a septic system, he can't put it there. So that's why he's got to pump it. His alternative would be a holding tank and have it.
And they will not approve it for open tank.
Casey won't?
They would not produce construction.
Wow. So that's not an option. All right, so, I mean, the board just needed to hear what, before you came before us officially to have the board act on it, I think. Alan, you have any questions you want to
No,
bring up?
the only thought I had is that the easements that I have given for septics and drain fields, we put in the agreement that if that septic and drain field is no longer needed, that the easement becomes null and void. And somebody said, well, how would that happen? And I said, well, it's called a sewer. And eventually, I think long after the 25 years is over, we might have sewers around George Lake as well as maybe Lake Michigan.
Probably not my lake.
Yeah.
Like I say, there's the easement for here is for this lot. But this lot has now been attached to that lot, and they're using the septic on there. They actually ran, when they ran this, it was, they trenched it, so we know it's down 3 to 4 foot.
Mhm.
And they ran both pipes at the time, so they ran their pipes together, but they never built there.
Mhm. It looks very doable to me, but it's up to the board.
Well,
Do we need to
Board's
get the
not
road
going-
in first, or
I'm sorry?
do we need to get the road in first, or?
Well, again, the idea was to discuss this
Right,
thing,
right.
right? And Bill brought up the fact that the road's not in, but the road's going in, and that what we ought to do is see where the road ends up being, and then see what room is left.
But actually, I think that would be not far enough. I don't think it's gonna be an issue.
Well, that's a good thing about being a finance guy.
Yeah.
I've got to listen to other people and figure things out. So the idea here is get the road in. We know we've got a couple of options. I mean, if there's room there, we can put a new easement. If not, then we've got the backup plan utilizing the existing easement and going deeper. So at this point, the board, as I explained, the board wasn't going to make any decisions tonight. The idea was to introduce them to the subject because it will be a board decision to approve the easement or your use of the existing easement.
The only other thing I did want to mention,
Yep.
I included this picture.
Yeah, I did. And when I tried to make a copy of it, it just blew up yellow.
There's this is this your spot, Sharon?
Close to it.
So he doesn't have to take down so many trees. And I talked to Perfect Fence.
Yep.
And they gave me a quote for come in, remove a couple sections, then I would get a new section to replace the one where the tree fell on it.
Yeah, we have a broken one.
So
All right, so
We have,
Board, any other questions?
No.
for Rick?
what would be my next step?
I will be in touch with you, and because I'd like to work with Bill to see exactly what that road looks like. And I've talked to Todd, and there is paperwork we can do whereby you could use the existing easement if the board were to approve it. So give me a couple days to work through this discussion and work with Bill, and then I'll get back to you and we'll take the next steps. But as you know, it wasn't going to be a decision
I
tonight,
knew
so,
that. I just,
yep. I know you're hanging out there, but I didn't realize that they weren't giving you the holding tank option anymore.
I would have, it would have been cheaper to do a whole thing.
I was just going to say, yes.
Because even if I had put,
Yep,
and we've even talked about, I just get a motor home and fill it up and go down to Hards Park.
your creativity is increasing with the problems. Rick, thank you very much for your time on this. Thank you, board. All right, so that concludes the items for board discussion. The next item on our agenda is the informational purposes only, and that we've kind of already talked about that. I will be setting up a meeting, and it may be one of those working sessions type meetings in which we'll just lay out a 25-year plan with all of our equipment. And we have a 10-year plan right now for the road, so that at the end of that 10 years, the Otis Road that we finished is 10 years, and there's another 15 or 20 years before we have to. So there's a way we can start looking at identifying what those costs might be. So I will be setting that up.
The
So,
finance guy will handle the money there.
hey, everybody worries about numbers.
I
Everybody worries
do.
about the money. And without a plan, we could be facing a real hill with a lot of borrowing costs. And if we can take some action now and minimize that impact, I think
We,
it's
we,
wise.
we had a good plan years ago and things kind of went along and we budgeted monies in advance and used them along. So that's kind of went by the wayside, unfortunately, but that's a good thing to start back up again.
We're
So I
going-
appreciate your time on that, Bob.
We're going backwards, I guess, to the old days. Anyway, citizen comment. Next item. Do we have any citizen comments? Bill, come on up.
If you missed me.
I did,
Oh, that goes to.
but the funny
I'll
thing
take it.
is, I've
Thanks.
seen you more in the last week than I've seen you in the last 3 months.
I feel so much better about it.
Good.
Two things I'd like to point out. Number one, Sharon, you brought up earlier a really valid point. If it's not in the minutes correctly, how are people going to know 10 years from now what happened? So with that point in, I'd like to talk about the most recent election on referendum number 8. In the board discussion, we've never talked about how it was passed. So I just like for the record, when they look in 10 years from now, the vote was on referendum 8, that's M88 for people that are not familiar with it, 375 yes and 204 no. So the referendum passed, ordinance 8 is in effect, the rezoning was not approved. So if we could put that in the minutes, I'd be greatly appreciative of that. The second point I'd like to bring up is the elephant in the room. Not you, Bob, okay?
I thought it was thin.
But you brought it up earlier, and Kathy, you demonstrated what's happening in our community.
That I didn't
We've
know.
got a lot of things going on in Barnes Park right now. And I just want to top line it. The current commissioners voted in February in the CIP to look at changing the structure of Barnes Campground, the park. And they wanted, and I'm top lining this, so. There's another numbers that we could talk about. The first number was 84 campsites. Then it was changed to 116 campsites. Then the current director, James Hunter, said he wanted to move it to 140 campsites. Then Friday, we did a walkthrough of Barnes Park Campground of how he wants to expand the campground. And now the new number is 160 campsites. Now, I'm not going to get into all the things going behind the scenes, but our supervisor is aware of this, and he's taking steps to look at this. And quite frankly, there's a number of different zoning ordinances that Antrim County has violated. So as this moved on, I'd like the general public to understand that our supervisor is addressing this. We have a number of people looking at this. There's not a whole lot of people in favor of expanding the campground, and there's a lot of different options. So I would like the general public to voice their concerns, if they have concerns, to our supervisor regarding the expansion of our little jewel, Barnes Park. My personal opinion, for what it's worth, is undo what they've already done. They've added numerous campsites to it in the commons area and back in the woods by the path. Put the money into revamping the showers, the bathroom facilities, and making this the best campground in the state of Michigan. And how do you do that? You raise the rates to pay for itself. Right now, this generates somewhere between $92,000 and $100,000 a year in income for Antrim County. And by the way, out of the 12 parks, it's the only park that generates income. So they're using our little jewel to fund all the other parks. With that, thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill. All right. Anybody else? If not, then board comment. And I will start with Jason tonight.
I don't have much. I just kind of, when Jairus, when you were talking, you had mentioned that the commissioners didn't want any more development or any more people. Is that what you were saying?
At the ACNA,
Yeah. Well, when you were talking about Barnes Park and whatnot.
I think we might have got, I was talking about the Antrim Creek Natural Area.
Right.
And there's a group of commissioners that oversees that.
Uh-huh.
And that specific group didn't want to advertise or get more people there. They said it was busy enough.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm the only county commissioner on that group.
Okay.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, no, that's it. I just running things through my head. Well, some people don't want more people here, but yet there's been talks of having a bike trail here, which would bring more people here. So it's like,
Well, they might be transient.
it's okay to do one thing, but not the other. So
Well, one's riding through town, the other one's spending the week. But,
and the other thing is,
question.
I live right there at the entrance of Barnes Park. I mean, there's a lot of traffic there. But yet we're being told that there's still not enough traffic to do something at that intersection up there. So it's like,
After your.
what's going on here?
After your family's experience, I sent to Bert your explanation of what took place at that corner. And I asked him, why is it that we can have the arrows and a sign going northbound and nothing southbound? Now, as he responded to that, which I'm hoping means he's working behind the scenes, because if I remember correctly, any activity there has to go through MDOT. So,
Yeah,
I am assuming since he didn't write back and say, we're not doing it, that in fact, he's working behind the scenes to try to get something done there.
here's another situation. You're heading north. You want to make a left turn into Barnes Park. Coming south is a truck pulling a fifth wheel, wants to turn left onto M88. Well, I want to turn down Barnes Park, but luckily I know not to do that because people are whipping right around that fifth wheel. And I don't know.
Bert said that MDOT did not they did a survey in May, I believe, and MDOT said we didn't have enough traffic to do a light. But that's one of the issues I raised with Terry about this whole thing. And we raised when Jairus brought up the park in June to say that they were looking at that. Sheriff Bean was back there and I saw him taking notes. And that was one of the things we all told him is that right now it's tough in the summertime at that intersection. If you're putting in another 60 lots with people, are you going to put in another exit? And
Right.
Jairus, your answer was, no, that's going to be the only way in. So there's a lot yet to figure out on this thing. And as I mentioned earlier, we got a lawyer and we're going to work through this and we're going to make the best out of it. Sharon, comments?
I'm next.
Well, you are on my list.
All right. I just want to say I'm proud of this community that did go to the Antrim County Board of Commissioners meeting. I think we had a voice to say and we all said it. And I appreciate the community for doing such, and that was regarding the Barnes Park. I kind of wish that Antrim County Board of Commissioners would reestablish a Parks and Rec Committee. They used to have one years ago, but it was disbanded. That would be an asset to start back up again because they do have a new parks manager, but a Parks and Rec Committee would be something they can be discussed. I think if you can get volunteers to help work on that committee, I think that could be a helpful reestablishment of our parks now that we have a director and we can go that direction. September 14th is come and gone. It was a very busy season of mine. We're on the road and it's going well in the tax department there. So other than that, I'm proud of our community. I'm proud of our community for standing up. So anyway, thank you.
Jason is correct. You just love the money.
Love getting them.
Oh.
Send me the money. She is
You know,
walking around.
I had, Sharon Billing was here in the building this morning. She had her little great grandson. He's just not even 2 years old. And his daddy goes out to work, and he always says, "Where's daddy at?" And he goes like this. And I said, "Sharon, what's he doing?" "He's bringing home the money. He's working to bring home the money." That's what a 2-year-old is doing, you know?
Ellen, you're next on the list.
I have no comment.
All right, Kathy?
Uh, Maybe I should have said this under announcements. Just a reminder, we all know there's an election coming up in November. Absentee ballots are supposed to be in the clerk's office by the 29th of September. And as soon as I receive the ballots, I will start mailing them out. And a reminder, if you turned in an application for the August election, there was a place for you to mark that you wanted to vote absentee also in November. So if you did that, your ballot will come to you automatically. And if you're not sure, call the clerk. But don't look for ballots till 1st of October-ish, okay?
All right, my comment, I wanted to thank Tom, he's gone, but for his time. Rick, I appreciate your coming tonight and for the fire crew that came. I owed Barb Boudros an answer. And so we did research the MCL that she stated, and that had nothing to do with anything about publishing comments. Todd and I looked through a couple other MCLs, and none of them had anything requiring the township to make any publication of the results of the referendum. We also didn't show the results of the vote for the road millage. So we were somewhat consistent in how we performed our government duty. So with that, Bill, I had a bunch of other comments related to your email or your letter to the editor. But in true spirit of cooperation, since you paid me a compliment tonight, I'm not going to burn a bridge. So if the planks are there in the bridge, I'm not going to go through it. So with that, I make the motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second it.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 And the meeting's adjourned.
9:22.